Bob Brown, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Barry.
Well, taxpayers faced with a choice, a tax cut with a carbon tax or a tax cut without one. Which way would you go?
Well, certainly we'll be directing, if we're successful in our negotiations, a tax onto the big polluters, not onto households. Whichever way you count it, Tony Abbott's aiming to put the burden onto households. And if those figures your panel was talking about earlier are true, bang goes, he says he's going to cut government services. Well, bang goes 40 or 50,000 teachers, nurses, soldiers. He hasn't got it funded, and he's going to be tested in the next 2 years on that. He also won't collect the tax from the miners, but he wants a corporate tax cut. Put all those together, you're looking at minimum $15 billion a year missing from revenue, and that's going to be a cut to government services. It's got to be schools, hospitals, railways, defence. And he's now on 2 years defending the indefensible.
But he is good at delivering a very simple message, and when he says tax cuts without a carbon tax, I can hear him saying that loud and often.
Well, what he means there is he's going to keep feather bedding the big foreign-owned mineral corporations at the expense of householders. It's as simple as that. And he's going to take money out of the revenue raised from average taxpayers and at the same time as he's talking about tax cuts, and he's going to deliver that to the polluters. It's a very simple equation, Barry. He wants to have the polluters paid by revenue, that is ordinary taxpayers. What the Gillard government, the Greens and Independents are working towards is having the polluters, in an age of dangerous climate change, which is already affecting our economy as well as our lifestyle and for example, threatens death to the Barrier Reef and the productivity of the Murray-Darling Basin. He wants that burden put onto householders. He can't have it both ways.
What about what you're hearing, though, about the way that Julia Gillard plans to compensate taxpayers through the... And it looks as if she's looking at a sort of a cut-off level of about 150,000. Are you happy with that?
Well, yes, it's a work still in progress, and Christine Milne will be talking with the government about that again tomorrow. But it is one that says we're going to look after low-income earners, people who are struggling to make ends meet, and middle-income earners, and make sure that at the same time we do get a result as far as climate change is concerned. And these big, and I reiterate this, largely foreign-owned multinational corporations which are digging up our minerals and which will export the profits and continue to do that out of the country should be paying their way when it comes to fixing up climate change. I think the Prime Minister's going in the right direction here. I think she's aware that middle-income earners and lower-income earners will need assistance. We've guaranteed that they're not going to be out of pocket over carbon pricing. Tony Abbott will have them out of pocket one way or another because he's simply not going to get the money where he needs to, and that's from the polluters.
You might be close to the government on that score, but how are you generally? How far away are you from an agreement?
Well, there are still one or two major hurdles, and we're working to work our way through those. And I have to say this, the Prime Minister has been very businesslike, very persistent. She is a very good negotiator. And I'm like her and the independents, all approaching this with a spirit of a positive spirit of making an agreement. We're not there yet, Barry, but we're working towards it.
Weeks away?
I'd say weeks rather than days, but we're working towards it. There's one or two major matters to yet be settled, but there's a positive feeling in the air.
What happens, though, if you don't reach a unanimous position? Can it still proceed to a vote?
Well, we'd like to meet an agreement, and that's what we're working for. The options, none of the options are as good as reaching an agreement, so we're working towards that.
And the problem for you, of course, is if you don't reach an agreement, then this would be the second scheme that you've scuttled, and politically that would be a very difficult thing to deal with, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would, but I don't think that'll be the outcome. I'm full of optimism about this. I've got my feet on the ground, so has my colleague Christine Milne, but we've been working with Greg Combet, the Treasurer, the Prime Minister, Tony Windsor, Rob Oakeshott, Adam Bant's been in there. It's and some very good advisors like Ross Garnaut. So we recognise this is a nation builder. This is about the rest of this century in an age where the United Nations has just figured that if we don't act on climate change, it's going to cost the global economy $1 trillion per annum. Now we take that seriously, and we're aiming to ensure that Australia plays its role from a scheme which gives us flexibility in the future to meet up and to meet in with other carbon trading schemes or pricing schemes around the world. But this is a platform from which Australia can go forward. It's a platform that would be sunk if Tony Abbott were to have his say.
Now, in 2009, you voted it down partly because they gave too much compensation to the coal industry, as you saw it. So I presume that you would take the same approach again, that you would want less compensation to the coal industry than was being offered in 2009.
Well, we're not in favour of compensation to the coal industry, which I repeat is largely owned outside this country. Companies like Xstrata.
But they employ people in Australia.
Well, they employ people in Australia, but they line the pockets of millionaires elsewhere in the world. And that's what Tony Abbott wants to do. That's not what we're in this to do. But, Barry, we're in the process of negotiating here. It's not going to be a Greens outcome. It is going to be a composite of the input from the independents, the Greens and the government. And I frankly like the people that we're working with to get that result.
But do you compromise to such an extent that you would say this time around you would be prepared to accept the same level of compensation that you opposed in 2009?
Well, we'd prefer that not to be the case. But let me tell you, the big problem with 2009 was it locked us in for 10 years at least with no flexibility to move into the future as the world moves on. And our big aim is to give flexibility in this scheme, and I think we'll have a degree of flexibility that wasn't there with the CPRS. I think it'll, our aim was to get a better outcome, and I'm confident we will.
With coal, though, it is a trade-exposed industry. About 80% of the coal is exported, and they can't pass on the prices in the same way that other industries can.
Look, Barry, all the estimates of the impact of a pricing scheme like this on coal are down there in 1%, 2%, 3% on their profit line. You know, this is an industry turning
So there shouldn't be a lot of job losses? Is that what you're saying?
That's right. This is an industry that's got turning over hundreds of billions and over the coming decade. And let me go back to it. It's exporting its money out of this country. And let me talk about jobs. It threatens death of the Great Barrier Reef with 67,000 jobs, a $6 billion economy that's coming back into the Australian economy. Ross Garnaut's earlier estimate was 90% of loss of productivity in the Murray-Darling Basin with 128,000 Australians, a lot of them small farmers and business people in the bush, threatened directly by these big coal operatives. Now, sure, the industry's not going to have its profit line anything more than affected in a few percentage points, but it has to be. What Tony Abbott would do is take money from those very people I've just been talking about and give it to these big coal combines. Come on, really, that's highly irresponsible.
When you say a negligible impact, do you also say then that no coal mines will close?
I would expect that in the future we are going to see some of the most polluting enterprises in the country have a struggle. That's the nature.
And how quickly after the introduction of the tax?
Well, we're still negotiating
but it could close down some of these mines overnight?
I would not figure that in because they are just so highly profitable. But that has to be the outcome. You know, the coal industry has to be replaced by renewables. And one of the things we are looking forward to here, the Greens recently got a $100 million package from the government for baseload solar in this country, and that'll be in regional Australia. We're the sunny country. We're way behind Germany and China. We need to catch up because the Howard government and governments since then have been pouring money into this mega-rich coal industry. And so, and Tony Abbott's scheme is going to cost householders $720, an average household in Australia by the end of this decade, to feather bed these coal miners. really, he's got 2 years of explaining this, tax cuts, which he's got uncosted, thrown in. And I'm going to be at the forefront of putting the blowtorch to him, and he hasn't got the answers.
OK, the balance of power, of course, shifts when Parliament next sits. How does that rate in terms of your career so far?
Oh, it's lovely. I've been in politics now for 25 years.
The pinnacle?
In a way, yes, because we've got 4 new senators coming in. We've got Adam Bandt doing a great job for Melbourne in the House of Representatives. I've got my existing, now very experienced colleagues in the Senate. We're just 10 out of 240, but I tell you what, we're giving vigour and vision to this period of Parliament. So we're announcing portfolios for the 10 of us today, and I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, I look at those portfolios, 69 separate portfolios.
Yeah, we're covering...
Cover a lot of ground.
Yeah, and the government and opposition. But we also, you know...
But more than that, East Timor, West Papua, Tibet, Burma, all have separate portfolios, so it looks as if you've sort of picked out some pet projects.
Yes, certainly, because people, you know, the Dalai Lama was in Canberra a week ago, and I was very pleased to be one of those hosting him into that parliament, but Australians are concerned about Tibet. And he had 16,000 people turn out for his last event at the Burswood in Western Australia. A little bit of extra effort put into trying to get freedom for the people of Tibet is something that Australians back.
Another thing I notice is that Lee Rhiannon gets forests, but you keep Tasmanian forests. Does that mean that you trust her with forests, but not your forests?
No, it means that we're going to work together. Look, let me tell you, Barry, Lee's a friend of mine. We're experienced enough to know that we can have some differences in approaches. But we work well together, we always have. That's for a long, long time. We are both keen on bringing an end to the destruction of wild forests and rare and endangered species in our... It's just a nonsense at the moment. We're hopefully moving towards some sort of outcome in Tasmania at the moment. But I'm looking forward to working with Lee on forests and other issues like local government. OK, and
just the chances are that you said you're going to try and apply the blowtorch to Tony Abbott, but the chances are you'll be dealing with an Abbott-led government in perhaps a year or two, and yet in a feature article in the... Well, you might be, 2 years' time.
Yeah, I wouldn't say the chances are. I'd say he's got his time cut out. I saw the promo to this program, the Liberals. I'm very happy.
But he's miles in front in the polls.
Well, wherever he might be, this is mid-government, and he's been having a fest out of the fact that we haven't yet got a climate agreement. But when we get that, and you know, I've got increasing confidence, he's going to find himself on the back foot. Whatever. I don't have a party that's riven like his is, and I feel
no, but
very
what you did say in that feature article in The Age is that if there is an Abbott-led government, I'd love to be in that position.
True.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I'd like to take him on. I just think I think the guy's just a veneer.
But you hold the balance of power. You don't take him on. The idea is to work cooperatively with the government of the day, isn't it?
And I've offered that to Tony Abbott all the way down the line. He hasn't picked up the phone. I mean, he's just missing so many chances. When it comes to strategy in the parliament, he doesn't quite get it. But, you know, Christine Milnes held a Liberal government in the balance of power in Tasmania in the 90s. We can work with both sides, but it takes two to tango, and I don't see Tony Abbott is a team player in that sense. I think he's in there for winner takes all, and modern Australian and world politics is about more consensus making. If there's one thing that Tony doesn't understand, it's consensus.
Thanks for coming in this morning. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Barry.